welcome again to Sit for a Spell. Today we're going to discuss distance healing. How do you do healing energy work for someone who isn't present? I have a great opportunity to show you because my son managed to injure himself while he was sleeping. He apparently cracked his scapula. How you do that when you're sleeping, I don't know, but he's always sleptwalked and, so had sleep disturbances. So I suppose that, if it was going to happen to anybody, it was going to be him. So I don't get to see him as often as I would like, so I'm going to direct healing energy towards him from a distance. And I will demonstrate how to do that. To help me today, I have Raggedy Lenore. You guys have seen her in the opening sequence, and you probably wondered what that business was all about, and today I am going to show you. But first, a simple charm. Whenever you're doing healing or protective work, if you're not certain what to do or what color to use, you can always try a white candle. This is, I made this, and there will be more of these available on my Webstore. They contain herbs appropriate. This is a house blessing candle, if you're wondering what this has been charged for. The beeswax is the same high quality beeswax that they use to make church candles in the Catholic Church. And I think it works very well for our purpose. And basically, you concentrate on what you'd like to do, bring positive healing energy to my son, in this case. These herbs will also work for that purpose. The ones that I've put in here, they're good for blessing and also for healing. So lavender being the big one, as you can see. And then you just light the candle. Just light the candle. There you go. And I'm going to set that in my candle holder, and I'm going to leave it on my altar to burn until it has gone out. If you don't want to leave a candle to burn until it's gone out in a given spell, then you can put it out. I would advise doing so with a candle snuffer or licking your fingers and pinching the wick, because it's less disrespectful to the fire spirits. That's the belief anyway. And then relight it in sequential days for short periods of time until it has finished burning out in that way. Alright, so let's move on to our spell. Now, when healing using a poppet, the first thing you need to do is establish a connection. I mean, that's the whole point of having a sort of vaguely human-looking thing or human-shaped item to work with. Lenore is going to help us out with that. They do this in Reiki too. They teach you to heal from a distance using a teddy bear. When you're doing Reiki, there is a symbol that is specific for distance healing, and I find that it helps to establish the connection and makes it very clear and easy to do. However, it's not necessary. I already knew how to do distance healing by the time I learned that in my Reiki training. I just found that it made the connection simpler and flowed more effectively. So, alright, so first thing you need to do, establish the connection, right? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do that. Now, remember a couple of principles in magic. Sympathetic magic, like attracts like, hence we're using a human-shaped item, to a doll to establish that connection. And the second thing is law of contagion, which is to say that if there's a connection that's been made between something and something else, then that establishes a connection. So you may have heard of using things like hair or blood or other, nail clippings, things like that in a spell. I have and will do that. I'm doing a healing spell for my son, as I've said, and I have some of his hair, which I have saved. Now, all of my family members know that I do this, and what I generally keep it for is protective magic in emergencies, like say, I've got a bad feeling somebody's going to get into an accident or something. Well, I make sure to pull out the hair and do the work, right? And then it establishes a connection easily. So I just have a little bit of Dan's hair, and I'm just going to put it in Lenore's hair to establish that connection. As a result of the fact that I have the hair, you know for a fact that I have permission from my son to do this kind of work. It's important to always get permission before doing even a healing, because maybe magic isn't something that somebody wants. Although I'm willing to advocate for asking people, say you have a grandmother you know is a devout Christian, right? And you say, can I pray for you? Because that's all we're doing here. We're asking our gods to help them out, right? And they can choose whether to refuse or not. If you don't know whether or not you have permission, but you feel you should do the healing anyway, build it into your statement of intent that if it's not in the person's best interest or highest good, then let the energy dissipate into the earth instead. Now, say you don't have hair or clippings or something like that, so what else can you do? Well, I have a little bit of anointing oil, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my son's name in runic writing, because I like working with runes, on the doll. If you have a poppet that you intend to dispose of when you're done, you can always just actually write it in, say, magical ink, but I'm just going to use the anointing oil. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is light a candle. That's just to invoke positive energy. Remember what I said about white candles? And how do you direct healing energy towards someone at a distance? Well, now that we've made the connection and we're aware that this represents the person that we're trying to heal, we can even state as such, you know. This is my son. My son is here. We have made this connection, so mote it be. It doesn't have to be complicated. So here's a couple things. One thing we can do is the use of a pendulum. I like to use a pendulum in diagnostic work when I am doing healing, because the energy flow of the pendulum will often tell you things. Where it runs into a problem, it will do odd things. You see, we already have a problem here. I wonder if my son has a headache today. He's prone to them. I will ask him about that. But normally it'll just flow like this with the proper flowing of energy. Can't be harming the dress there. I'm getting away. So now I've done the chakras, so I'm going over parts of the body. Okay. Yeah, see, now I expected that it would run into a problem in a shoulder. See how it's just kind of stopping there? That tells me that's the problem shoulder. Alright. What you can also do, now that you've used it for diagnostic purposes, is that you can deliberately spin it in order to clear the energy. You get it going in a counterclockwise direction. Yes, okay, the use of pendulums. I suppose I should cover that. I probably should have done that in a separate video. But the thing about them is you try not to move them, right? You're not moving them with your hand, right? That's holding things up here. You're trying to hold it fairly steady, but you're leaving it room to move as it needs to. What you're doing to get it going the way you want it to go is directing your energy, right? So I've kind of given it a mental command that I'd like it to spin counterclockwise and banish, right? So it's banishing the negative energy associated with the problem in the shoulder. And as you can see, it's done because it just kind of stopped. It said that's all that needed to be done. Good. Means his bone's probably pretty close to healing, and that's actually very good news for me. Now another thing you can do is direct energy through your fingers or through your athame. Let's see if I can clear up his headache a bit. When directing energy for healing purposes, always draw it up through the earth into yourself, preferably using the microcosmic orbit to get it all circulating like I discussed in my previous video. Alright, now here's the real problem, the scapula. You can turn over the doll and direct things towards the back too, and we will do that in a minute, but yeah, lots of work needs to be done in there. Alright, now you just direct energy until you feel that it's no longer needed. You can also use your anointing oil, which could be a healing purpose. This is just a multi-purpose oil of a bromelain that I make traditionally, and I keep in this pretty little anointing bottle, which I can wear around my neck. And you can get this in my Webstore, actually, or you can make your own. And you can draw healing symbols on the part that's a problem. I've drawn a sun because Apollo is supposed to be a god of healing, and we'll draw Mercury because it's associated with the Claudius and medicine. I can also draw Reiki symbols if I also do Reiki, but I'm not gearing that to the Reiki practitioner today. This is something that should be available to every witch. So I'm trying to gear it towards that. All right. Other things you can do. Perhaps you want to use crystal healing. I have here a bag of crystals that I keep specifically for healing purposes. Now, generally you should have an idea of what the different crystals do before you put them in your, I should show you what they look like, before you put them in your bag. But once you're actually doing the work with the crystals, it's intuitive, right? I'm just gonna lay a couple of crystals here. I think I'm gonna lay this big quartz right on the problem spot. When you're not sure what to use with crystals, clear quartz is always the way to go. This is seraphonite and amethyst, which I feel also should go there, probably there. Tiger's eye can be good for healing bones. I don't want to put too many on here because I'm going to do crystal healing can be done in another episode, but I just want to give you an idea of the kinds of things that you can do. If you choose to go the crystal route, you could lay out a crystal grid, which is to say you can put crystals all around the doll and direct healing that way. It's a citrine. I don't really know why that's needed, I just feel it is. If you're working with the chakras, remember that chakras also project out the back as well as out the front, except at the top of your head and the base of your perineum, where they project sort of in a cone out from those directions. So don't neglect to do back healing work when you're doing that sort of thing. And now I've got my crystal grid finished that I intend to do for today, and this is just the stuff that I felt inclined to put around the doll that seemed to be something my son might need. I'm intrigued by the fact that I've got a sorcerer's stone on there. It's anhydro. This contains a bit of water in it. It's supposed to boost your psychic powers, right? And I've got lepidolite there, which is supposed to be good for moods. So I should probably give him a call and see how he's feeling. Right, this here is green calcite, which green calcite brings prosperity in particular, but calcite in general is good for bone healing. So I'm not at all surprised that it ended up on my grid, right? And basically at this point, I just leave this here until I feel that it's no longer necessary, probably until the candle's burnt out, right? And all of that energy of healing is directed towards my son. Now, I went through this fairly quickly because I think it would be a very long and boring video to sit here and watch me in silence putting my hands on particular places. But again, remember, direct the energy, healing energy, which will usually be visualized as a clear sort of sparkling white light or perhaps light blue, sometimes a sort of a light green color. And I will put that on this spot until, or whatever spot feels appropriate that you may have discovered in the use of your pendulum, right? I will put that on there until I feel it needs to be done, and that might be, 5 minutes, it might be half an hour, who knows, right? You kind of got to just trust your intuition in that part. If you're not certain, if you have difficulty sensing what the spot is, there are many different ways in which this information presents itself to us. And it really depends often on how you learn. Some people actually see holes in the aura, and that's cool. I can, but that's not my natural preference. I tend to feel areas that are hot or cold, or areas that are tingling, and areas that feel diminished of energy. Like it'll just be, okay, that's a dead zone, right? Oh, that's, really electric. Oh, that's like way too electric. That feels like it might be pain that needs to be reduced. And I'll work from that point, right? Like I'll, direct soothing energy towards an overabundance of energy, or I'll try to drain it off, right? If it feels like it needs a bolster of energy, I will add some, right? Some people feel that as hot and cold sensations. Some people hear noises. Sometimes I kind of hear noises. when everything's working right, it vibrates kind of like a crystal bowl, and at least to me, and it might be like the notes will change depending on how close to whatever chakra they are, because of course each chakra has its own note that is its own vibrational frequency. But when it's wrong, it'll sound like an ozone buzzing, like, a loose electrical circuit, or like I don't know, like sometimes it sounds discordant, or it sounds flat, or it sounds just irritating, like the noise is irritating, like fingernails on a chalkboard, right? When I say see, hear, feel, a lot of that feels like imagination. It'll feel like you've kind of, just conjured that out of, whatever, the ether. And in a way you have, because that is the part of the brain that does intuitive work. So don't think you actually have to physically hallucinate colors. I mean, you can, some people do, right? But that's not necessary to do the work. If it's kind of just a sensation of, and this is what it translates to, that's fine. I mean, you're working with the sixth sense here. It doesn't actually have a correlation in our five senses, but because our brain and our experience is trained to deal with things in those five senses, they will often express themselves as a sensation that will remind you of that, in the same way that the flavor of a cigar will remind you of, say, chocolate if it's a dark cigar, or, hay if it's a lighter one. They don't really taste like that, but that's what your brain associates with it. So, and that's it. Now, when you're finished your spell, make sure to remove any of the physical things that you have used to draw the connection between the doll and your subject, because this will continue to establish a connection in the future if you leave it, and obviously you want to clear it for the next healing purpose, right? So I would burn this or throw it under running water in order to dissipate the magical energy and make sure that it can't be used against your subject, because of course you are trying to help them, right? You're trying to make sure that it's not harm to them. So to clear away the energy of, say, the anointing that you did, you could also hold the doll under running water. You could put it in salt. You could put it in moonlight or sunlight. All those cleansing methods that I keep talking about for crystals or other items. Always do them after you finish your spell with the items that you have used in the process of your spell, because you want to clear those energies and make room for the next ones, right? So thank you very much for your help, Lenore. I appreciate your effort today. And we will see you next time on Sip for a Spell. Merry meet.
Hey, did you know that I'm now offering advanced magic classes for my $5 plus Patreon supporters? Check it out. Thanks.